Welcome to Montana Whiskey, Wealth, and Freedom.
Well, I've been in love, I've been on the ground, I've gotten back on my feet, just to fall back down on my knees for you and your whiskey under the bridge.
First, quick introduce the new the new participant in our show today is Glenn. Is it Straw or Straws?
Straws, drinking straw. Multiple
straws.
Yeah.
Okay. So I asked Karen and Kyle to do the same thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask you to just go ahead and take the lead on your own intro and just share whatever you would like to share about yourself. Just a 1 to 2 minute intro.
Okay. So I'm 43 now. I born and raised in Port Orchard, Washington, South Puget Sound. Graduated high school. Did a couple years as a volunteer firefighter, trying to work my way into that industry. The Army called, and I answered. Went and did that for 4 years. And then after that, I decided I wanted nothing to do with that. And I got into healthcare because I was a medic, and I decided to become a nurse. I spent 13 years as an RN. Graduated from MSU, Montana State, and then started in Butte at the hospital there. Did that for 3 years, traveled for 5-6 years. Went back to Butte, worked there for another 1.5 2 years, and then decided I needed a change. And I've been a home brewer, brewed beer for a long time. And then I kind of decided, well, why don't I just do that? That's what I like to do. That's a good hobby of mine. So I looked around forever for brewery jobs, and nothing was coming up. And I also drink whiskey, so I thought, well, that'd be fun to make too. So I did that. I found a job at Willie's, and now I've been there for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Kind of worked my way up a little bit, started, ground level production, and now I'm kind of, I'm not running the show, but I'm one of the leaders of the production crew. So
okay,
kind of helping tailor the mash schedule, helping do all the proofing and mixing. Just kind of found my little niche there. For
this month's opportunity to get into the weeds of the product, I want to turn the floor. Before I turn the floor over to Glenn, do either one of you have a question for Glenn that you want to ask him about?
Not yet. I'm just excited to hear about what goes into it.
Yeah. So give us the lowdown. What's the skinny on how Stockman's rye whiskey is made?
Well, it's a throwback to Prohibition. So I don't know if they talked a bit about this. Canada actually had their own Prohibition, and our Prohibition started in 1920. Theirs started in 1918, 1917. The big key difference between the two was Canada was you were allowed to stay in business for export. You couldn't sell to fellow Canadians, but you could export. And then so when they were in the height of their export business, we literally cut out our business. So guess where our whiskey came from?
Yeah,
it came from Canada.
Yeah.
And so, Chicago and Al Capone gets all the glory. But you look at the northern Montana border, and it's not controlled. It never was. And it is now, sort of, right? But not compared to the big port cities on the East Coast and the West Coast. And so running liquor across the border in some of these unnamed roads and cattle trails that were in place back then was a heck of a lot easier than to run it across the river in Chicago. And so there was a lot of bootlegging coming across through the Montana border and then from Montana out into the surrounding states. And so that's where Seagram's and the Canadian Club came from. That's why they're in business today, is because they maximized that market. They were literally taking their stuff from the still and getting it across the border. And so, this is kind of and the next part of that is traditionally a rye whiskey is a Canadian whiskey. Rye grows better in the northern latitudes. And because, and then obviously this is a traditional oral. I'm not pulling down facts, but traditionally, or what we're told is that rye whiskey comes from Canada because rye grows up there and wheat and barley doesn't grow as well up there. And so if you were an old cowboy and you went to the bar, if you were an old stockman, which is cowboy and stockman are pretty interchangeable terms, you would order a rye, and that's generally a Canadian whiskey. And so this is a throwback to those days. It's 54% rye whiskey, our rye whiskey, and 46% Canadian whiskey. So our rye whiskey is made from 95% rye and 5% barley. And you can scale this. You can take it from a 1 gallon batch all the way up to a 400 gallon batch, which is what we do. And then, so of that rye whiskey, who knows, kind of, we don't really get the grain bill from the Canadians and what they're giving us. But it's the majority rye. So that's where the name comes from. Stockman, again, it's an old throwback term. I just looked this up the other day because I was curious why did we choose Stockman? Well, the Stockman is someone who raises animals for a living, raises animals for food. You think mainly cattle, but it applies to sheep and other range animals. So in Australia, even they use Stockman interchangeably with cowboy. So if you were in Australia, you'd call a cowboy a Stockman. But here in the States, a cowboy's a cowboy. But back then you could say I'm a stockman. That's what I do for a living. And this was founded by Stockman. That's also kind of where the name comes from. This Irishman named Ennis. He's had this cattle company. They found gold in Alder Gulch back in 1860 or something, and then the town was founded a couple years later from this gentleman named Ennis. And
so his operation in the Madison Valley there was feeding the mining camp.
Basically, running a cattle company for beef.
Yeah.
And he picked that location because it was part of the land grab and the Western movement. Now kind of comes some of the magic of the distiller is barrel aging, what we're going to do with our barrels, the char level of our barrels, how long we're going to leave it sitting on the shelf. So you hear a lot of the bourbon guys in Kentucky bragging about we have the perfect weather to age our spirits.
Glenn, I'm going to interrupt you again. Yeah. So what you're about to share is this is where the distinction comes into play that distinguishes Willie's Distillery from.
Yes.
This is what makes you
right.
Your own independent, unique distillery different from maybe somebody else.
Right, and there is some things like the style of pot you're using, the style
that
of
pot
your still that you're using.
How you're choosing to run them, like you said, if you run them dirty and get more of the grain flavor or not.
And so there's a lot of companies out there that run big continuous column stills. We're talking 10, 12 stories high, where they're getting that refinement down so much that they're literally just getting vodka out the other end. Does that make sense? Like, the bigger your condensing column is, or not your stripping column, your reflux column is, the more you're going to strip the flavor out of your spirit. So if you want a good grainy alcohol, you want to run in a pot still, right? Like the Scots, in their Scotch, they run simple pot stills. That's all they do, continuously simple pot. So we but if you do that, you have to run it twice, and it just increases production and increases the overhead really quite a bit of what you're doing. So we choose to run a hybrid system. So it's a very short column. So we're getting some stripping, so we don't have to double distill it. But at the same time, we're conserving the flavor of the grain. The grains are coming through. Yeah, but with a hybrid system. So I think what we're doing, that's specific to us, but you can run that same style still pretty much everywhere.
So that falls on the distiller to determine how to create an internal system that maximizes flavor and also maximizes profit margin.
So in our column, you can do different things inside your column. You can what they call caps. So there's physically a cap that covers the hole that the vapor moves through. And then your vapor is forced to kind of take its time so it can strip more water out. So the more time it spends in the column, the more the excess other stuff that you don't want falls back out of vapor and into solution back into the pot. So we spent a lot of time with our brand new still that we just got figuring out closing and opening caps on the column. We even pulled out some of the other things inside the column to get it to flow through quickly, to kind of maybe lessen some of the reflux that we have in that column to preserve those grain flavors. We also do, we distill on the grain. A lot of distilleries, breweries, they sift those grains out of solution and then put them in the pot. We do everything on the grain, so we really try and preserve that flavor. And that's one of the things that sets us apart.
I don't, on the grain.
Okay, so imagine you have a mixture of your, say, 9% pre-distillate. The grain and the husk and all the other stuff that you didn't turn into alcohol is still in the liquid. So you then pump it into the pot. A lot of distillers will either grind everything down to a powder and use like a flour, or they will, through the brewing process and the mashing process, they separate the grains out.
What would be an example of that?
So if you're making beer, for example, you have a mash tun that has a false bottom, which is a screen on the bottom. So when you drain it, the liquid comes out, but the grain stays behind.
But as far as like competitors for Willie's that are doing a lot of the similar products,
So Butte head frames, they're using a continuous column still. They don't have a pot still like we do. They're grinding everything into a flour and then using that in their fermenters. Yeah. So they're continuing. Oh, sorry.
Nope. I was just going to ask. You're a very inquisitive guy, so I'm assuming you have questions. Do you have any question you want to ask Glenn at this point?
Not at this point. I feel like probably 40 or 50 questions have gone through my head because this is the first time I've ever heard anything about distilleries. So it's kind of a fascinating thing. The science behind it all is fun.
Yeah,
it makes sense. The difference between like a pot still versus a continuous. Anytime you do something in like holding it in a longer period of time is going to make it a little bit more rich is what it sounds like. Right. So that's intriguing to me because I like quality.
That's what the pot still gets us. Yep.
So do you lose, you said production, you have to weigh the production side of things. Is there a loss with the pot still compared to the continuous still when it comes to output?
I don't think there's necessarily a loss, but you think about the time it takes to get 400 gallons up to from room temperature up to 170 is a couple hours. It takes time. Water is very, it's hard to heat up and it's hard to cool down. And so it takes time to heat that stuff up. But if you're running a continuous column still and you're doing like a continuous injection of just a little bit at a time, I would imagine your energy costs are a lot less.
Do you guys use natural gas?
We use propane.
Okay.
A couple propane big boilers, and yeah. We were on a little electric boiler, and that had the horsepower to run the little guy, but it was still, it took a bit. It took a lot.
So Glenn, I have another question for you, and then Kyle, I want to come back to you. Do you have anything you want to ask at this point? Okay. So, because again, I get it's fun because we just had a similar conversation with Kyle, a very different context, a very different subject matter, but it struck me as very similar that there is, it's a really understanding the process that goes into doing something well and in producing a quality product at the end, or quality outcome, I should say, whether that pertains to distilling a liquor or creating a financial instrument for somebody that allows them the opportunity to do more with what they have to work with. it's to me it's I'm noticing an interesting sort of parallel here. Like it's, you guys couldn't be more different as far as what you do for a living, but yet you're really both you're explaining something concept wise that really illustrates or highlights the importance of that quality measure that you're talking about, really knowing what you're talking about. You know what you're talking about with your subject matter. Glenn, you know what you're talking about with your subject matter, and that matters. Like that's important into producing that high quality outcome. But as far as this specific product goes, is there anything before we change subjects? Again, because not that I don't want to give you the wrong impression. It's not that I don't appreciate the what you're giving us. It's just I think that it's going to be difficult to consume it all in one sitting.
Absolutely.
And
especially the whole bottle. Don't recommend that.
But as far as this specific product goes, because again, sort of what we're trying to do here is really help the audience understand when they consider purchasing this product from your end of the business standpoint, what are the things that they specifically should be aware of or know that makes this purchasing decision maybe unique versus I want to buy this versus maybe something else, and you should say, no, you should really buy this, and here's why.
If someone said that they really like Canadian whiskey, if someone said they would like rye whiskey, I would say buy this product. I feel like it has the smoothness of Canadian whiskey. So Canadians, they make, for example, so they blend their whiskeys, meaning they'll make a whiskey that is 100% corn, 100% rye, 100% barley, and they put them in their barrels and they let them age, and then they have, I've never seen it, but I imagine they have these big blending tanks where the head distiller or the person making the decision tastes each one and says, I want X amount of this, this, and this, right? And they blend what they do. So here in America, we're so bourbon focused, we tend to mash everything in the same tank, and then we get our product. They mash things separately, and then after they're done with the distilling process, they'll blend it afterwards, after it's done aging, after it's done all that. And they're allowed to use additives and flavorings. So they'll add a little caramel flavoring, like Pendleton, for example, Crown Royal. It's kind of the same product, but they're allowed to flavor it. Crown's really sweet and very smooth on the tongue. Pendleton's a little harsher, not that much more, but it's kind of the same thing, but they blend it differently, right? Whereas we kind of mash everything together, barrel it, and then we get what we get kind of at the end. So they're allowed to kind of circumvent that question mark at the end. They can blend. So they say, oh, this batch of corn whiskey, liquor, was not very good. So we're going to use a little less of that this time. This batch of barley whiskey, after it's done aging in the barrel, and they're going to say, oh, we're going to use a little bit more of this batch of rye whiskey. They're going to use a little bit more. So if you like the smoothness of a Canadian, but you want a little peppery note, this is the product for you. Yeah.
So I feel a little frustrated because I feel like we're just getting started, but unfortunately we have to stop.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we do. We gotta wrap it up. But the parting question that I have is, I'm curious. So Karen and I got picked on quite a bit last week from Dave because I mentioned the notes that were given to me around this product: scent of toffee and caramel, taste of toasted oak with a hint of smoke, finishes with vanilla and tobacco. And Dave was like, I don't know about that kind of stuff. Like I'm all about the stories. So he kind of raked me over the coals a little bit about beat me up a little bit about referring to the notes. But with that said, it's interesting to me, and I think we'll have to get into this next conversation. Unfortunately, is how those kinds of notes, comments, or note sections, if you will, that describes a product like the Stockman's Rye Whiskey, how that's derived, how it is, how it's determined in the distilling process, which unfortunately we won't be able to get into today because it's short of. I know, right? But I am curious, and as a parting comment question, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle and ask, because you made the comment earlier when we were talking on our part of the show about that you're not really a big rye guy, and neither are we, but we really both like this product. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, super good. Yeah, when it was called rye, like I usually will never buy a rye. I won't order a rye because I've had rye where it's like, I'd just rather not, But this is delicious. I would drink it. Yeah, I was actually thinking I should probably get a bottle.
Well, there you go. We've served our purpose. We're here to spread the good word.
And you can use the code and get.
Oh, right.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the other thing I want to share with people was they have the opportunity. So as they learn more about these Willie's Distillery products, thank you, honey. They can, once they sign up as a member of the community to be able to access the show content, they have the ability to go to a chapter that is set up in the community called Willie's Reviews. And if you go, you buy the product, and if we have a promo code that is treasure. We'll have the link set up and everything, so people can go use the link to get it. If you buy 3 bottles or more, you get free shipping. You get a 15% discount on all merchandise product from Willie's. But the key is to get this product in people's hands so that they can try it on their own in conjunction with listening and learning about it through the show. And then they can go into the Willie's Reviews channel, and they can, I think you're ringing, they can leave a review, and that puts them in a drawing. And when they are entered into the drawing, we end up doing selecting a winner, and once a quarter, and whoever wins will get these products and more, because we're going to build on this merch package, because this is actually set up as a monthly drawing, but we're probably going to double it just to accommodate a quarterly drawing. But there's going to be a lot of great stuff that comes from Willie's that the people get shipped by participating in the review section of the community. So yeah, thanks, honey, for bringing that up, and thanks, Glenn, for coming in.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I had to cut you short. I mean, it's just
all good.
Well, next month I know where we're catching up, where we're
right. Yeah,
picking up.
I don't know. I feel pretty passionate about making spirits and beer and making alcoholic beverages in general. So I know a lot about it. I've spent a lot of my own free time learning this. And
well, we like the Karen and I are really partial to the Prohibition story behind this product specifically.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I unofficially launched a national movement last week called the 1628 Project.
I think Prohibition made more drunks than there were before.
Oh man, there's a lot of things we can talk about around that whole.
Tell people they can't do something, and it really makes them want to do it.
But I would love to see. I'm partnered with the Fair Tax Organization, and there's a very interesting backstory to the income tax and the 16th Amendment and everything that came into play around the Prohibition movement and what happened with liquor sales taxes and things like that. But I would very much love for Willie's Distillery to choose to become the official spirit of the project. And just kind of lead that charge of independence and American spirit, and we'll see where it goes. But I look forward to future conversations with you.
Absolutely.
And you're welcome to come back next week when we do the recipe show, or we do a show, but it will include recipes. But you're certainly welcome to stop in and visit again if you want, and we can pick your brain more. Kyle, thanks again. Yeah. I appreciate you hanging around. It was nice to have your input and have you participating in this part of the conversation.
This part, fantastic.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
More fun than the first part.
Yeah. Well, now you see in normal, when I get my timing right, this will happen together, right? So not first, but when all 4 of us sit down at the table together next month, we'll start with the product, pour each other's glasses, and then have a conversation around the wealth aspect. So we'll
'Cause it's whiskey and wealth.
whiskey and
We just got
wealth,
our
right?
timing
So
this time.
right, so we just had to kind of dissect it and do the wealth part first, and then the whiskey part second. But normally we'll blend them and do them both at the same time.
I don't know they can have whiskey before wealth, though.
Oh, it's a requirement.
You have whiskey while you're making wealth.
Yeah. You gotta enjoy it. What's the point of having wealth if you don't enjoy it?
Well, the Irish could have a few things to say about that.
Well, on that comment, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you very much. I really appreciate everybody participating, and great conversation. Thank you.
Now I gotta run back to Montana. I had my fun.